Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren here, Question Period Canada. How are you guys doing today? There was a huge storm in Nova Scotia last night. The snow is melting. It was a nice day, kinda, but it was brutal last night. I actually went out and captured some of the footage. I was trying to find it here, but I haven't got it yet. And if we can find that at some point, we'll put that video out, because it was gross last night, like real hard Canadian weather. So we're going to jump straight into question period. They're doing their statements that they do. Like, there's probably 4 or 5 minutes before we get going with the actual question period. But what I'd like you to do is, if you could, if you enjoyed this content at all, give us a like. I think it helps, like, promote the feed. The more likes you have getting going, the more people will be let to know to tune in, something like that. I don't know. If you can give us a like, though, that'd be great. Anyway, we're going to jump right in. Looks like Marilyn Gladow's in the batter's box.
Food. The
Give us some
carbon
audio
tax
there.
does nothing to reduce emissions, but forces Canadians into poverty and homelessness. The end result of the Liberals' failed carbon tax experiment are the 2 million Canadians who are now using food banks. This is unacceptable. Conservatives will continue to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
The honourable member from Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to stand in the House of Commons today and show my love for the Arctic and our love for Canada's sovereignty and security. I want to talk about the generational NORAD investments of nearly $40 billion over 20 years that we're investing into the safety and security of the Canadian Armed Forces for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, under NORAD, we have designated 3 sites of forwarding operations in Inuvik, Yellowknife, and Iqaluit, and 1 operating deployment air base in Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Hey,
These
Canada.
4
Hey,
sites
tinfoil
are
hat.
critical
What's up,
to
guys?
NORAD's operations in the Arctic and to Canada's sovereignty. We're investing to build 6 new Navy ships, 4 of which we've delivered, 88 new aircraft, and nearly $7 billion to modernize our surveillance system by installing over-the-horizon radar systems. Unlike the Conservatives who cut the budget in national defence and Canada's security system, we are increasing our budget and we are spending the money that we need.
The honourable
They
member
do like to
from
spend money,
Edmonton
those
Lawrence.
liberals.
Mr. Speaker, in 1913,
Look how pumped
Jews
up he
were
is.
prohibited from practicing medicine in any hospital in Toronto. But 4 brave immigrant women from the Jewish community worked tirelessly and raised enough support to open the doors to an institution that is known today as Mount Sinai Hospital, a world leader in the delivery of healthcare in over 45 languages. Ironically, this sacred ground of healing was the target of an anti-Semitic protest that undermined the health and safety of the patients and medical professionals who work there. The hatred must come to an end. The attacks
Cicely,
against
what's up?
synagogues, schools, businesses, and neighborhoods must stop. But the burden shouldn't fall only to the Jewish community. We must all put our shoulder to the wheel. Strong allies like Labour
Hey,
leader
Mike, what's up?
Victoria
Michael
Mencinelli
Bradley?
speak with moral clarity and set an example for others. For only if we stand together can we end anti-Semitism and live up to the vision of Mount Sinai that still motivates an inclusive and life-saving work that they do today. Thank you.
The honourable member
Where's
from
Mendocino
Calgary
been?
Heritage.
After 8 years, these NDP Liberals are not worth the cost. And guess what? The Alberta NDP agree. NDP leadership contenders are abandoning the sinking carbon tax ship.
That's right.
Sarah Hoffman said they played dirty politics with it and picked winners
He is a joke.
and losers.
Not funny,
You
though.
know who else loses?
Right.
All Canadians. 23%. That's the whopping increase to their carbon tax on April 1st. 2 million Canadians lined up at food banks across the nation. The family of 4 paying $700 more in groceries this year. This Prime Minister is so radical that even his costly coalition partners in Alberta's NDP can't defend his carbon tax. So let me be clear to NDP Liberals in filleting each other and the costs on everything. Axe the tax, build the homes,
homes.
Fix the budget. Stop the crime. And restore the promise.
Yeah! Oh, yeah!
The honourable member
shaking
from
hands.
Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, February is Age-Related Macular Degeneration Month, and yesterday was
It's what?
AMD Awareness Day on the Hill. A number of stakeholders and specialists in eye care are here in Ottawa this week to meet with members of this House and the other place to speak to vision care issues. We salute them and their work that they do on behalf of all of us. I also take this opportunity to thank all of my colleagues in this House for adopting unanimously my Bill C-284 to establish a national eye care strategy in Canada. I ask my colleagues in the Senate to please pass the bill as soon as possible. It would be wonderful to celebrate the adoption of an eye care strategy during February AMD Awareness Month. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
The honourable member from Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
The Auditor General lifted
Yes,
the
I
veil
like
on
Kelly
this
Block.
government's corrupt Arrive
She's
scam,
fun.
revealing that the cost of this useless app, which should have been $80,000, is $60 million and counting. The two-person company, GC Strategies, that did no IT work, was paid over $19 million for Arrive scam, charging over $1,000 a day, 60% more than a government IT employee. And with insider access, they dictated the requirements for a contract they won. Today, media is reporting they've received over $250 million from this Liberal government since 2015. Whiskey tasting and extravagant dinners with government officials went unreported. Documents went missing, and taxpayers footed the bill. The Prime Minister's failed Arrive scam app, which wrongly sent thousands of Canadians into quarantine, was over budget and not worth the cost. The RCMP must expand its investigation to figure out where the money is and how to get it back.
The money back.
Member from South Surrey, White
Never gonna
Rock.
happen, right?
As Asian Canadians welcome the Year of the Dragon, Richmond residents gathered to protest taxpayer-funded drug use in their community. A video from the protest has gone viral and international. As citizens dared to speak up, they were shouted down by a vile left-wing racist screaming, "Go back to Hong Kong and go back home where you came from."
Hey,
These
True Blue,
comments
what's
are
up, disgruntled
outrageous and have
Canadian?
no place in our country. It's shameful that this Prime Minister has allowed racism to fester among his political base. People from all over the world used to dream of a day when they could bring their families to Canada, afford a home in a safe community, and be part of the Canadian story. We have been blessed by the contributions of Asian immigrants for generations. After 8 years of this Prime Minister's radical drug policies, our streets are filled with crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. Conservatives stand with all Canadians who want to raise their children in a drug-free community and will always defend their right to say so.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Mr. Speaker, with winter, cold and snow, it's hard to imagine better days ahead. But rest assured, spring is on its way, and with it, the delicious symbol of warmth that is Quebec-made maple syrup. Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's once again time for families, friends, and visitors to take part in the maple harvest, a ritual as sweet as the syrup it celebrates. It's a celebration of Quebec gastronomy, where traditional dishes mingle with the taste of fresh maple syrup, a harvest that dates back to the Indigenous peoples and is part of Quebec's rich heritage and culture.
Pancakes, your crepes, or pretty much anything your heart fancies in fresh maple syrup at home or visiting our local cabana sips.
This is clown
I invite
talking
all
about.
Vaudreuil-Soulangeois to enjoy the delicious gift of spring that the maple harvest brings.
Maple harvest, I guess.
The honourable member from
Hey, Joan,
Vancouver
what's up?
East.
On every Valentine's Day since 1992, led by Indigenous matriarchs, 2S LGBTQ+, and family members in the downtown East Side, the community took to the streets to honor and grieve for the loss of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and the gender diverse. Each year, as we march, the drumming unite our heartbeat, eagles circle in the sky. Their spirit live within us. This act of remembrance is an expression of love, respect, and solidarity for families and survivors. Our community stand united in the call for justice. We demand full implementation of all 231 calls for justice. We demand action and not just empty words. We demand accountability and measurable progress. CBC reported that as of June 2023, only 2 of the 231 calls for justice have been completed, and more than half have not even been started. This is unconscionable. In honor of Indigenous...
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. On January 27th, at the St. Scholastique Church, over 200 people paid their last respects to Ms. Louise Léonard, who passed away at the age of 79. She was the wife of my friend, Denis Lauzon, founder of Mirabel's Agricultural Centre. Denis had a very special way of introducing himself to people. For nearly 60 years, he was the self-proclaimed best married man in St. Scholastique, and with good reason. He and Louise had a touching complicity, and I was welcomed like a son in their home. As a teacher, Louise Léonard contributed to the development of hundreds of young people who crossed her path. She was proud and involved in her community and the world. Like many village elders, Louise longed to grow old at her husband's side at the new seniors' residence in St. Scholastique, peacefully with her loved ones. And as you stroll down the hill today, you may come across Denis, and if you look up to the sky, you'll see Louise, her eyes full of kindness, watching over him and all of us, as she always has. Bon voyage, Louise.
Member from Calgary, Midnapore.
After 8 years of this Liberal
Stephanie
NDP
Cusick.
government, the
She's always fun.
RCMP is once again investigating a Liberal deal. 2 of the contractors involved in the creation of the ArriveCan app are already being investigated for potentially criminal acts used to obtain contracts. But that investigation won't even scratch the surface of everything that was hidden from Canadians. GC Strategies, an IT firm of 2 people that did no actual IT work, was paid over $19 million just to find people to build this $60 million app. Not to mention, they also rigged the bidding process for a $25 million contract that only they could win. And it doesn't stop there. Reports are out this morning revealing that this 2-person headhunting firm has gotten as much as $250 million taxpayer dollars since 2015. This RCMP investigation needs to be expanded to understand what really happened in the building of this app and who is responsible for this huge waste of taxpayer money.
The Honourable Member from Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, February 24th will
Baker's
mark 2
crazy.
years
He's
since
a
the
crazy
beginning of
person.
Russia's further brutal
Loves
invasion of Ukraine. Our government has said that Canada will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win, that victory is the only option. Victory is the only option because Ukraine's victory is vital to Canada's security.
Has anybody
if
seen
Russia
Shirley
wins,
yet?
it will not stop at Ukraine.
Distracted.
If Russia wins, Europe, the U.S., and Canada will be next in defending ourselves against Russian aggression. So every Ukrainian soldier fighting today is one less Canadian who will have to fight in the future. Every dollar we spend today is millions of dollars less that we will have to spend in the future. Our government understands this, and that is one of the reasons that Canada has been a global leader in supporting Ukraine. Unfortunately, Conservatives continue to vote against support for Ukraine, against Canada's national security. On this 2-year anniversary, I urge MPs throughout this House to support and vote in favor of the support needed to ensure Ukraine's victory, because victory is the only option to our security, to our economy, and to our freedom. Slava Ukraini!
Who cares about the Ukraine guys? Like, it's a good-sized nation, but there's not a lot of people live there. They contribute to farming, but not like Canadians do. And it's not our business. What is going on with Russia? Nobody knows.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Here we go. Question period. Let's go. Get some likes.
The Prime Minister's ArriveCan scandal is broadening. Today, we learned from Mr. Bellavance that one company alone received $250 million. A company with 4 employees. Their headquarters is in the basement of a cottage. They're an IT company that doesn't do any IT work. Mr. Speaker, what the heck?
Looks like you were right, Sarah. It's going to be a lot about the
Prime
ArriveCan app.
Clearly, this happened during the pandemic, and we were doing everything we could to help Canadians get by. But even in an unprecedented situation, the rules have to be followed, and those who didn't follow the rules will have to face the consequences. That's why we warmly welcome the Auditor General's recommendations, and that's why the authorities involved are doing their job. Yes, Canadians should get the truth, and we expect the investigators to do their job.
The
He's so
Leader of the
empty and
Opposition,
fake.
Mr. Speaker, to quote from GC Strategy's website, they boast that they are the Ottawa company that has had the fastest growth. And that's a quote. So this Prime Minister, after 8 years, gave contracts to a company with 4 employees that works in IT but doesn't do any IT work and got millions in contracts. The first contract was entered into 3 weeks after the Prime Minister took office. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Like the Auditor General,
Hey, Tim,
Canadians
How are
have
you?
questions about whether or not the rules were followed and how this kind of company was able to get all those contracts. That's a question we expect the authorities to find the answers to and investigate appropriately so that we know who and how these processes were followed and what rules were broken. It's very important to make sure that taxpayer money was spent appropriately, and in this situation, we all have serious questions that need answers.
Well, Leader of the Opposition.
We do have
Prime
a lot of
Minister's
questions.
Arrive scam is now flailing out of control. Today, revelations from a Joël Denis Bellevance that one ArriveCan company received $250 million in contracts. Let's get this straight. It's a company with 4 employees, headquartered in the basement of a tiny cottage. They got IT contracts even though they admit they do no IT work. $250 million. WTF.
Here, here.
Nice. Good one. WTF. That's pretty hard for Parliament. Greg Fergus is probably going to have a comment. Imagine. Jackass. Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting, guys. Wednesdays are wild. What is Greg Fergus going to say about this? Because, like, you're allowed to say letters of the alphabet, I'm pretty sure. It'll be interesting. Decorum, comrades, colleagues.
I'm going to ask, we are dangerously close to crossing the line in terms of what is considered parliamentary language.
This guy's a jackass, man.
That is an abbreviation which is commonly used with language, which is commonly understood not
LOL.
to be parliamentary. I'm going to ask the honourable opposition leader, please, to withdraw that comment and to use parliamentary language, please.
Where's the funds?
Here we go. Awesome. Wednesdays, right? Wednesdays are hot. Oh, look at what he did. He set that up. Poilievre is a pretty clever politician. You've got to give him that.
I appreciate that the Leader of the Opposition had clarified that comment. I'm going to ask all members to not use the acronym, because the acronym in the minds of Canadians clearly would be considered unparliamentary language, and to use the full words. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
This is pretty great.
Mr. Speaker, during the time of pandemic, the government rightly did everything it could to keep Canadians safe and keep them protected. But of course, even in the most trying times, perhaps especially in the most trying times, all all the rules need to be followed. In this case, the Auditor General has highlighted some very concerning questions that need to be answered, and that's why we're expecting and supporting all relevant authorities to follow up on these irregular contracting and this perhaps breaking of the rules. This is an important issue, and that's why we're taking it seriously, Mr. Speaker.
Where's the funds? That's great. See you next Tuesday. Like, what is Greg Fergus going to say about that? Fergus and his button, right? You shouldn't give a guy like that a button to press that he enjoys pressing. He'll just keep pressing it. Look at how long he's letting this go. What's going on in the background? Because I can only hear a little bit. I think there's a heckler. Look at Trudeau and Poilievre debating back and forth. Can you see that? I think there's an audio issue or something. What are we doing here, guys? This is a pretty wild and wacky question period. I've never seen one start like this. I've never seen this long a delay in just, because there is broadcast, like there's signal coming through and they're moving. Like, what are they talking about? I don't know. So how fed up do you guys get with Greg Fergus? Is it here we go. Colleagues. I heard hecklers too, Flips. Yeah, and it didn't sound like a parliamentarian's voice. It sounded like a group or something. Again, hard to decipher. Hey, Alan, what's up? You walked in at a pretty crazy moment because there's something going on. I think that there's we'll see. We'll get to the bottom of it here. But they've gone to this different angle, which they never use this camera.
In light of the disruption that we had, we are going to take a 2-minute break to allow things to calm down, and then we will come back for the questions and answers.
It's a 2-minute break, so I don't know what to do with this 2 minutes. We're going to watch the floor, see if there's any activity. Because now Andrew Scheer has gone up to talk to Mr. Speaker Greg Fergus. I'm quite sure that's Andrew Scheer, but I don't know who the other person is. What is going on? Where are the funds? So a 2-minute break. Like, I don't know. We could drop into another video, like right quick. But I think it might be more interesting to watch this. This is a crazy moment. Like, I've been daily. I haven't missed one in almost 6 months since we started. We started, I think, September 27th, and so we're not going to listen to that. We're not going to do that. Let's see what we're going to do. Okay, guys, we're gonna pop this on. And see how this works. Sorry, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
It's a threshold that needs to be met for the Emergencies Act.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the invocation of the Emergencies Act is not something to be done lightly. It's not
Okay,
something
maybe
to be
we're
done
back
as a
on the
first
other.
resort.
So, sort of do all this. I don't know what I'm doing when we have an interruption like this. So, we'll be right back to Parliament. Here we go.
Leader of the Opposition.
Wild and wacky Wednesday, man.
A company that had never before received contracts from the federal government started getting an avalanche of contracts just 3 weeks after this prime minister took office. The company, in fact, got $250 million for IT, even though it admits it doesn't do IT. It has 4 employees and has a headquarters in the basement of a cottage.
That was
Can
crazy.
the prime minister explain why this suspicious company started getting these contracts exactly 21 days after he took office?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's obviously an unacceptable situation, which is why the relevant authorities are fully investigating exactly what went on here, particularly highlighted by the Auditor General's recent report. This is an issue we need to continue to understand and make sure that the rules are being followed, make sure that our procurement practices across government are respectful of taxpayer money.
He's so full of it,
The
guys.
Honourable Leader of the
What
Opposition.
a weird distraction that
The
just
Prime
was.
Minister is not worth the cost or the corruption. After 8 years of doubling housing costs, quadrupling the carbon tax, sending 2 million people to food banks, he somehow found $250 million for this one company, which boasts on its website that it is now Ottawa's fastest growing company. No doubt about that when they're having their faces stuffed with tax dollars by this Prime Minister. Why is it that when Canadians are starving in food bank lines, the Prime Minister finds $250 million for his friends?
That's disgruntled Canadian. That's a lot to say.
Obviously, the relevant authorities need to follow up on this and get to the bottom of exactly how this unacceptable situation happened. In the meantime, on this side of the House, we're going to continue to focus on making life more affordable for Canadians. For example, attracting thousands of healthcare workers by increasing by 50% student loan forgiveness for rural doctors and nurses, by fast-tracking the construction of more than 51,000 homes, by finalizing the housing accelerator agreements with over 60 small and rural communities. While the Conservative Party continues to block these initiatives, we're going to continue to step up for Canadians.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. It's important that
the Bloc
all
had something to
Quebecers and
say, do
Canadians
they?
should know.
I wonder if it's
that
about
the
Quebec.
government has an unfortunate habit of finding scapegoats for the mistakes they've made over the past 8 years. My first question is quite straightforward. Who is responsible? Whose fault is ArriveCan? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, while the pandemic was raging, as a government, we tried to find various ways, every way possible, to protect Canadians' health and safety. But even in times as difficult as that, we have clear rules.
Has anybody
that
heard
have to be
Freeland's little
followed
voice? Is
around
she there? Yeah, I think I
contracting
see her there.
and procurement. And
No,
we
that's Steve
expect
McKinney.
the investigators and the responsible authorities to do their job so that we can find out exactly how this unacceptable situation occurred.
Oh, no, that's FPC.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. For clarity, I think we can assume from now on that the person responsible for everything and all the corrective measures that will be needed is the Prime Minister of Canada. What has he put in place in terms of an investigation? For example, are contracts going to be suspended to this company starting back in November? Will they get any more contracts with the government? They were getting contracts before. So what kind of investigation is going to be conducted, and who's going to conduct it, and how long, what's the time frame? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker.
You guys cracked me up.
Once we began
True
to
Blue
see
just
that
made
there
a
were
joke
some
about
irregularities or some rules that
Christia's
weren't
broom
followed
not starting today.
by the public service.
I like jokes like that. I find them funny.
Within the public service were triggered. And at the same time, we know that other authorities, including the police, have gotten involved, and we expect all that work to be done to ensure that all the rules were followed, and if not, that there are consequences as appropriate.
This translator has a speech impediment. It's
Goes
frustrating.
even deeper. The Liberals gave $250 million to GC Strategies. Let's talk about what that $60 million for ArriveCan could have bought. 125 affordable homes. 800 nurses hired. Instead, this Prime Minister spent this money on an app that doesn't work and no one uses. How does the Prime Minister look Canadians in the eyes with all this waste?
So much waste.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, Canadians' lives were at risk, and we, quite rightly as a government, reached out to all the possible tools to keep Canadians safe. And indeed, the pandemic was less deadly and less harmful to our economy in Canada than it was in most, if not all, of our peer countries. But at the same time, even as we were innovating and trying to do everything we could to keep Canadians safe, the rules needed to be followed. It is obvious that in this case, the rules don't look like they were followed, and that's why there are investigations ongoing that need to get to the bottom.
Oh, is that so?
The honourable member for
The
Burnaby
Bloc does
South.
ask good questions, Joan. Sometimes they're
Flagrantly
just...
violated and millions of dollars were wasted. Les Liberals.
JAGMEET always does that
gave
stupid trick where he starts in English and then
$258 million
crosses over
to GC Strategies. That includes spending $60 million on an app that doesn't work. With $60 million, 125 affordable housing units could have been built. How can
Kerry,
the Prime
what's
Minister
up?
look Canadians in the eyes after wasting so much money? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, as a government, we looked for every way possible to keep Canadians safe and healthy. That was our overarching goal, and we did better than most other countries similar to us. At the same time, we still expected and should require that all rules be followed. Apparently, that wasn't the case, and that is why follow-ups are being done and investigation is being done. We're going to find out who's responsible, and there will be consequences for those who broke the law. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Leader's question. The question was, how can the Prime Minister waste millions of dollars on ArriveCan when Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, or house themselves? The answer is because the NDP keeps that Prime Minister in power.
It is awesome. Wednesdays, man.
Consistently in committee to cover up the scandal and shut down investigations. This was supposed to cost, this app was supposed to cost 80 grand, said the Prime Minister. Now it's at least 60 million, but we don't know for sure because of missing documents. What is the full and final cost of ArriveCan?
They have no idea. Millions and millions and maybe hundreds of millions?
Mr. Speaker, I've addressed these questions, but I will highlight that part of the Conservatives' attacks on this situation is because they deeply deplore all the measures we put in to keep Canadians safe during the pandemic. We remember how they gave in to conspiracy theories, spreading anti-vaxxer conspiracies, standing against measures that we needed to put forward to keep Canadians safe. Yes, as we did all those things, we made sure that rules were followed, and any rules that weren't followed, there are consequences and there are investigations ongoing. We will continue to keep Canadian safety at the forefront.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What was the full and final cost of the app?
Oh, my goodness.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Look at it go.
Mr. Speaker, that is among the questions that there are direct follow-ups investigations ongoing right now, both internal and external, to ensure that as rules were evidently broken, there are consequences, there is an accountability for this. There's no doubt that there are serious challenges around procurement and the public service that were evident at that time. We need to make sure that is fixed. We need to move forward in a way that takes better responsibility for the kinds of challenges that we saw in this situation.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Oh, Lord.
How much?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, we were there to invest to protect Canadians and keep their lives safe. Despite the objections and the conspiracy theorism of the Conservative Party, we stepped up in many, many different ways. But even as we did, we expected and we continue to expect that rules around procurement be followed by the public service. It is obvious that that was not the case here. That is why there are ongoing investigations, there will be consequences, and there will be changes made to the public service.
I've got to wait for Trudeau to shut up. Poilievre is going to put on a master class. Wait and see. He's got him lined up.
The Prime Minister said ArriveCan would cost $80,000. According to the Auditor General,
it will be a master class. He's going to trick Trudeau into saying something that he shouldn't say or committing to something that he would never normally commit to.
750 times more.
I feel like he's laying a trap.
But we still don't know because the records weren't kept properly.
Hey, Doge, Eli,
the
Mars.
Prime Minister has access to all documents in his government. So the question is, how much did the app cost? How much? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I said, there are investigations underway trying to find out exactly what happened and who benefited and what the consequences should be. This is very important. But remember that at the same time, everything we did was to protect Canadians at that time. And we expected even during that terrible crisis that the rules would be followed. And obviously they appear not to have been followed, so that's why there's an investigation to shed full light on the situation. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How much?
Combien?
How much?
Exactly.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I said, Mr. Speaker, there are investigations underway to find out who is responsible, what rules were broken, and what the consequences should be for those involved. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The people involved are taxpayers who can't pay their bills anymore, Mr. Speaker.
Poilievre.
The Leader of the government has access to all the documents. Does he think we believe he doesn't know how much that cost? How much ArriveCan cost?
He doesn't know how much his own app costs. He has the power to call for any document he wants from the government. So either he's covering it up, he's incompetent, or worse. Which is it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are ongoing investigations, both internal and external, that are following up on exactly how this unacceptable situation happened. We received the Auditor General's report last week. We are following up, and we have been following up on this for months already, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to make sure that anyone who broke the rules faces consequences, that systems and structures surrounding the public service and procurement are changed. This is something we are taking very seriously, as we must.
As we have to.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
La pandémie a le dos large.
Well, the pandemic is a pretty good excuse, but it doesn't exempt the government from requirements. We know the Prime Minister is ultimately responsible, and he hasn't conducted a specific investigation into the Arrive scam and the $60 million. Now, has the Prime Minister taken any steps to recover the money that was spent inappropriately and bring it back into the public coffers to try to fix this unacceptable situation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Hi, Starlone. What's up?
Mr. Speaker, In answering a previous question, I explained that processes were triggered months ago in connection with these contracts where the rules weren't followed or the processes weren't followed properly. So this has been underway for a number of months. We are making sure that despite the fact that there was a pandemic and we had to act quickly, that does not excuse the fact that contracts were awarded improperly and breaking the rules, and that is why there is an investigation and why there will be consequences. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister admits in a roundabout kind of way that there was misuse of public money by CBSA. Did he at least contemplate firing the current administration and putting the CBSA temporarily under some sort of custodianship? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the investigations unfolded internally, there have already been consequences for some of those involved. I can't talk about that because some of the processes are not yet complete, but I can reassure people that concrete steps have been taken. There have already been consequences, but there will be more as the authorities complete their work. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Common Sense Conservative Party is focused on cutting taxes, building housing, fixing the budget, and stopping crime. Meanwhile, the radical Minister of the Environment and this Prime Minister has launched a war on cars. He said our government has decided to no longer invest in new road infrastructure. How does he think people living in the regions are going to get to work? On their bikes? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Minister clarified his comments. The fact is that our approach when it comes to highway infrastructure has not changed. Since 2015, we've invested billions in roadways, whether it's bridges, ports, or highways. We will continue to invest in infrastructure all across Canada. Our approach hasn't changed, but the Conservative approach hasn't changed either. They voted against our investments in infrastructure. They voted against our investments in bridges, roadways, and rural communities and major cities. The Conservatives have always voted against. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, he didn't clarify. He added to his comments. The minister, the radical minister, said that the type of project the Liberal government would block would be like the third link for people in the greater Quebec City area. People need that third link. People need their cars when they live in rural areas. But this Prime Minister wants to get in their way. Why is he waging war against cars instead of helping people get to work? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Look at him. He's
Mr.
grinning and
Speaker,
laughing.
I'm sure Quebecers will be happy to hear that the Conservative Party is once again in favour of the third link. The fact is that our government's approach when it comes to investing in transportation, transit, and roads hasn't changed since 2015. The new Samuel Champlain Bridge is one example, and the Gordie Howe Bridge is under construction. We will always invest in infrastructure, and apparently the Conservative Party will always be there to vote against our investments in infrastructure.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the crazy carbon tax minister has done it again. This time, he's saying that the federal government is not going to support any new road construction. I quote, "Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure." End quote. So he believes that people in Yukon or rural Alberta or rural Newfoundland will have to get to work riding a bicycle. Mr. Speaker, why should those people have to pay taxes for infrastructure when they can't possibly use the tramways and the bicycles that he's funding?
Mill House is on fire today. Like Poilievre came with a loaded weapon.
The chair had made it clear to all members that we should be using certain adjectives in regards to particular members of parliament, to individual members of parliament. So like the word crazy is not a word that we should be using in this, and that's one of the things which I had been given direction to members. So I'm going to ask members, please, from now on, to exercise
You're taking the word
within
crazy?
the boundaries of parliamentary language. The Right Honourable
Out of
Prime
our
Minister.
vocabulary? Come on.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has already clarified his remarks. Our government's approach to investing in trade corridors and roads that Canadians rely on has not changed since 2015. We will continue to step up, and we got projects like the Samuel de Champlain Bridge in Montreal across the finish line, and we're going to get others like the Gordie Howe Bridge built. We're going to continue to invest in infrastructures. But what also hasn't changed is the Conservative Party's opposition to investments in roads and communities, in bridges, in ports, right across the country as we grow the economy, because all the Conservative leader is offering is cuts, cuts, cuts.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, first, this radical minister is bringing in a 61-cent a litre carbon tax on people who are committing the crime of driving to work or operating their farms. Then he wants to ban people from using vehicles that are necessary in our climate. And now he says he's going to ban all federal funding for future roads. Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure. Will the Prime Minister condemn these crazy comments?
Poilievre is on fire today, guys. Anybody agree? Give us a like if you think Poilievre is on
Once
fire.
again, the Minister has clarified his remarks. Our approach to infrastructure continues to be one of investing in the future for Canadians. Through the National Trade Corridors Fund alone, we're building projects like a new bridge over the Yukon River in Dawson City, new interchanges on Highway 101 and 103 in Nova Scotia, and twinning the Trans-Canada Highway in parts of Newfoundland. We're also working with municipalities through the Community Building Fund.
Hey,
Just
Bruce,
in
what's up?
Ontario, this means almost 2,900 projects for local roads and bridges. What has not changed as well is the Conservative Party's opposition to investing in future, investing in...
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Netanyahu's bombing of Rafah and potential ground incursion will be a slaughter. Thousands of innocent Palestinians will die. The Liberals act as if they're concerned, but they authorize $28.5 million in new military exports to Netanyahu. The Prime Minister has the power and the responsibility to protect civilians. When will the Prime Minister stop selling arms to Netanyahu?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Pretty divisive question right there.
The operation in Rafah would have catastrophic consequences. Over half of Gaza's population is taking refuge in the area, including many Canadians and their families. There is simply nowhere else for civilians to go. Protecting civilians is paramount. A sustainable ceasefire is urgently needed. Hamas must lay down its arms and release all hostages immediately. The only possible path forward towards peace is a two-state solution. We've told this directly to Prime Minister Netanyahu and other regional partners, and we have not emitted any new export permits since October 7th.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Prime Minister has an obligation to back up his words with actions. With kids going online, we know they risk being exposed to harmful content, sexual extortion, and harassment. In the last election, the Prime Minister promised legislation to hold those platforms accountable and protect kids within 100 days of being in office. It's been 814 days, and still nothing's happened. Children are being hurt as the Prime Minister sits by. When will the Prime Minister stop protecting web giants and start protecting kids?
Hear, hear. The Right
Weird
Honourable
question,
Prime Minister.
but don't they do that all the time?
The leader opposite knows well that we have been working very, very closely with communities, with individuals, with experts to move forward on online harms legislation that is going to do the right job of protecting our kids from all range of harms that they face online. This is something that we have taken very, very seriously, but it's also something that we've listened on and we've heard, particularly particularly from minority or marginalized communities, that we need to get it exactly right, and that's why we have taken the time. This is something that the leader knows full well, but we're going to continue to do the right work to protect our kids.
The honourable member from Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, sexual and reproductive health touches all aspects of human health and well-being. It affects physical and mental health. It impacts social participation. It ensures healthy reproductive organs, family planning, pre- and postnatal care, delivery of healthy babies, and safe abortion. There's a push globally to limit access to the full range of sexual and reproductive health care. This week, 2 female MPs were stopped from raising this issue in Parliament. Since it is SRHR Week globally, can the Prime Minister reaffirm the government's position on this human rights issue?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Vancouver Centre for her tireless advocacy on women's issues. This week, I'm proud to reaffirm our government's unwavering commitment to defending Canadians' reproductive rights through historic investments and work with grassroots organizers. But we've seen just this week, over the past 2 days, that the threat to reproductive freedom is alive and well in Canada, even in this chamber. The shameful behavior of Conservative MPs in shutting down women in this House leaves Canadians wondering what that party is so afraid of. I call on Conservative MPs to stand up for women's rights.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our common sense plan acts as the tax, builds the homes, fixes the budgets, stops the crime. Prime Minister can't defend his policy, so he's changing the name. People hate the carbon tax because 60% pay more into it than they get back in his phony rebates. So today he announced a costly rebranding of the hated carbon tax. My question for him is, how much did he spend on consultants in order to come up with the new name, and was it GC Strategies that he hired?
Hey Thomas, hey Lamonte, what's up guys? How are you guys doing today?
The Leader of the Opposition doesn't even understand the consequences of the cuts he's proposing left, right, and centre. He proposes to take away the carbon price rebate, the Canada carbon rebate from millions of Canadian families across the country. The Canada carbon rebate is going to be there to continue to deliver more money to 8 out of 10 Canadian families in 4 checks over the course of the year that puts cash in their pockets while we fight climate change. We're seeing reduction in emissions that Canada is leading on. We're also moving forward on growing the economy and supporting Canadians.
Always supporting Canadians. It's Trudeau.
He couldn't
so
even
supportive.
get the new name of the carbon tax right. It's only 3 words. The Prime Minister should learn that we can't improve life by slogans alone, Mr. Speaker. That's right. So that's why we propose the facts. I have here a distributional analysis of the federal fuel charge by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, which shows that 60% of Canadians pay more in taxes than they get back in his phony rebates. Why won't he follow the facts and axe the tax?
Follow the facts and axe the tax. Like, that's a pretty catchy line.
The opposition wants to talk about facts. The Canada carbon rebate will deliver $1,800 in Alberta to an average family of 4, $1,200 in Manitoba, $1,120 in Ontario for your family of 4, $1,500 in Saskatchewan, $760 in New Brunswick, $824 in Nova Scotia, $880 in PEI, and $1,192 in Newfoundland and Labrador to a family of 4. 8 out of 10 families across the country get more money out of the Canada carbon rebate.
See, Lamonte, I can explain that to you, this trick they're doing.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing. It has doubled in price since the Prime Minister was elected.
Hey, Rob,
today,
what's up?
on rent.ca, we found out that rent has hit a new record in January. Monthly rent hit the record of $2,196 per month. That is an increase of 10% as compared with last year. When will he understand that he needs to fund housing rather than funding bureaucracy, because that's not going to fix the housing crisis? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker,
Trudeau has
the
no
leader
shame.
of the
We'll get into that in
opposition
the
demonstrates time and time again that he does not even
'cause
understand the programs that he intends to
I'm
cut.
on to something.
We have a housing accelerator fund, and through that fund, we're investing in municipalities' capacity to build more homes faster. We are also increasing densification and making changes to zoning. We are accelerating permits, building permits. We are creating more opportunities for more units to be built. But the Leader of the Opposition refuses to understand that that is how we are going to solve the housing crisis. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Well, let's talk about this program then. Since it was created 2 years ago, rent has increased across the country. Yesterday, in committee, we asked the Housing Minister how many units have been built through the Accelerator Fund. The answer? 0. The Minister said the program is not building specific homes. Those are the Minister's words. So, Mr. Speaker, if it costs $4 billion to not build a single home, how much would it cost to build just one home? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Why is Poilievre doing all
Mr.
this
Speaker,
debating in French?
The Leader of the Opposition has just shown us that he does not even understand the programs that he wants to cut. Yes, we invested $4 billion in municipalities throughout Canada in order to increase densification and accelerate home building. We're investing to cut red tape. We're investing to build more homes faster, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are currently creating opportunities. 500,000 homes will be created over the next year, but this opposition leader wants to cut because all he knows how to do is cut and slash. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Canada Nuclear Safety Commission. The Commission, in fact, approved a nuclear waste mound where nuclear waste will be stored. And it's basically right beside the Ottawa River. Many people are very worried, including leaders of Anishinaabe groups who are here today. Does the Prime Minister feel that nuclear waste is dangerous? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, protecting the health and safety of Canadians and of the environment is a total priority for this government. The decision to authorize the facility was made by the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission, which is an independent organization that only approves projects after assessing them and ensuring that they're safe for Canadians and their health. And of course, they only grant approvals after consulting relevant groups and Indigenous groups as well. The Minister of Natural Resources does not have any say in the CNSC's decisions. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Yes, but the Anishinaabe Nation has concluded with full certainty that it is not safe. The nation of Quebec has also concluded with absolute certainty that this is an unsafe project.
I don't know.
So
Maybe.
Is the Prime Minister only listening to nuclear lobbyists, or is he only listening to the increasingly small liberal lobbies? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we know very well, as we all know, the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission is a scientific and independent organization. They conduct thorough investigations to ensure that nuclear facilities are safe. They communicate with and consult involved communities, and they ensure the safety of Canadians and of the environment. This is not a political decision, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we trust our experts. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Poilievre again.
8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled as he builds bureaucracies that block homes. In January, according to data out today, rent was up 10% year over year to $2,196. an astonishing increase in a very short time. In fact, it's up about 20% in the last 2 years alone, and it's accelerating ever since he named his incompetent housing minister. Will the Prime Minister follow our common sense plan to cut the bureaucracy and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that cuts from the Conservative leader wouldn't get more homes built. If he was really concerned about rents, he would line behind us and support the removal of the GST on new apartment constructions. That's something they actually voted against, Mr. Speaker. We know that unlocking greater supply of housing, including with purpose-built apartment buildings across the country, is a way of bringing down rents for people. That's a concrete solution that we've put forward that the Conservative chose to vote against for political gain and for political reasons. We're going to continue to be there to do the hard work of delivering for Canadians while he relies on catchy slogans and misunderstanding what it is that he's choosing to cut.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We were the ones that proposed taking the tax off home building, Mr. Speaker. The one good idea that he finally copied, but he talks about slogans. One is the Housing Accelerator Fund, the $4 billion program that was supposed to speed up housing. We asked the housing minister yesterday in committee how many homes it had completed. The answer is zero, nada, nothing. His quote, "It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes." Mr. Speaker, if it cost $4 billion to build 0 homes, how much would it cost to build 1?
He's on fire, like him or leave him, or not.
Once again,
it's
we
letting
have
Trudeau
clear
up.
proof that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't even understand the proposals that he's counting on cutting, that he's promising to cut from Canadians. The Housing Accelerator Fund is about investing in municipalities across the country to change the frame around which they build homes faster. It involves rapidly eliminating red tape. It involves increasing densification, changing zoning, making sure we can unlock far more houses construction than any federal government could build on its own. This is the approach that we're taking, and it's working, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
$4 billion, 35 photo ops, 1 minister, 0 homes. He not only says the program doesn't build homes, he says it doesn't lead to the construction of homes. He couldn't point to one development that had actually been completed. They've been in power for 8 years, and they can't get anything built. When will they get the bureaucracy out of and the taxes out of the way so that we can build the homes?
Hi, Blaise Leinhart. How are you?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the only tool that the Leader of the Conservative Party has put forward is cutting programs in order to somehow create more homes. What we're actually doing is investing in partnership with municipalities to eliminate red tape, to accelerate the construction of homes, to increase densification, to change zoning so that more houses can be built. He wants to talk about a number. 500,000 new homes are being facilitated by the Housing Accelerator Fund right across the country. We've signed these over the past months. Construction is already underway across the country.
All these houses are going to be built, and there's unicorns and free heat pumps and big rebates for Canadians on the carbon tax.
Canada are gathering to
Trudeau is full of it.
Women,
so is Sophie
girls,
Chattel.
And two-spirited people who have gone missing or have been murdered. Mr. Speaker, women in my riding, Indigenous women, are still afraid to leave their communities at night. This year marks the 5th anniversary of the final report of the National Inquiry. Can the Prime Minister provide an update on efforts to implement the calls to action outlined in the report? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I thank the member for Pontiac for her question and for her hard work. The crisis of Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people who have gone missing or been murdered is ongoing in our country. Since 2015, there has been a national inquiry. We launched that in 2015. The Conservatives refused to launch it, though. Now we have a clear action plan. Thanks to that action plan, there is increased help for those fleeing violence. We also created a red alert to help us find disappeared Indigenous people. I'd like to thank all those who are participating in memorial walks in their communities.
Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder he's unleashed in our streets. He has signed on with the NDP government in BC to decriminalize crack, heroin, and other hard drugs, and allowed for drug injection sites in Richmond. Courageous and patriotic Canadians of Chinese origin rose up to speak out and protect their kids, and were treated to racial slurs by NDP radical activists telling them to go back where they came from. Will the Prime Minister reject this liberal racism and ban hard drugs so we can stop the crime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the impact of the toxic drug and overdose crisis on our communities is absolutely devastating. We're using every tool at our disposal to work with partners to end this national public health crisis. Unlike the opposition, we're following an evidence-based approach while working in partnership with stakeholders, experts, and people with lived and living experience. We take the safety of all Canadians seriously. That's why from the beginning we've approached this from both a public health and public safety perspective, hand in hand with the BC government in this case.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He wouldn't condemn the racial slurs, but he did issue a vicious condemnation of his own record. Let me quote what he said about life in Canada after 8 years of his prime ministership, and I quote, "Yeah, grocery bills suck. Rent sucks. Mortgage renegotiations. Oh my God, how are we going to deal with it?" Mr. Speaker, this is life after 8 years. What is his slogan going to be in the next election? Vote for me and life will still suck?
Hey Clyde, what's up? How are you?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, did he just say, vote for me and life will suck? I think that's what he just said. The reality is we have put forward smart, responsible solutions to fight climate change and grow the economy, to lift over 500,000 kids out of poverty, to invest in the kind of economy of the future, the good careers, whether it's in zero-emission vehicles, whether it's in mining or forestry, whether it's in advanced manufacturing. We're continue to bring more women into the workforce with initiatives like childcare. We're moving forward on dental care, which the Conservatives voted against for seniors and young people. We're going to be there to invest in a better future for Canadians every single day.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually spoke the truth, maybe by accident, by saying that after 8 years, life sucks for the very middle class and those working hard to join it, to whom he promised so much. He taxed their grocery bills with a quadrupling carbon tax. He doubled housing costs after promising to lower them. He's unleashed a crime wave across the country. Now that he admits that life sucks under his leadership, why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
Instead of the carbon tax, they're going to call it the carbon rebate now? How ridiculous is that? Do they think we're stupid? Come on.
Canadians understand that these are complicated times and that governments need to step up with real solutions. Responsible leadership is about recognizing the challenges people are facing and putting forward solutions to fix them. Whether it's a housing accelerator that's getting 500,000 homes built over the coming years, whether it's childcare that is saving thousands of dollars for families right across the country as we help more women get into the workforce, whether it's fighting climate change in a way that puts more money into people's pockets and builds stronger careers for the future. These are the solutions we're putting forward. He's doing nothing but attacking.
The Honourable Member from Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want access to healthcare system and services that allow them and their family and loved ones to get the care they need when they need it. While the Conservative voted against payments toward Canada Health Transfer, our government signed a bilateral funding agreement with Ontario, investing more than $3.1 billion over the next 3 years. Can the Prime Minister please update the House on the Working Together Agreement and how they will help the healthcare system and the impact on the lives of the Canadians.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question and his service to his constituents. These specifically tailored agreements will address unique healthcare challenges faced by provinces and territories. Thanks to this federal funding, Ontario will add hundreds of new family physicians and nurse practitioners, expand healthcare education programs, remove barriers to foreign credential recognition, and open 5 new youth wellness hubs to improve access to mental health
Donna,
services.
what's up?
Unlike the Conservative Party is too busy fighting for a privatized healthcare system, we will keep making bold investments and work with the provinces and territories to deliver real
The Honourable Member from Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are worried about the climate crisis, and we know that coal is the dirtiest source of electricity, producing more emissions than any other fossil fuel. The Liberals promised to ban thermal coal exports, but under the Liberals, exports have more than tripled. More broken promises. They have no plan to phase it out, no plan to support workers. As Canadians across the country are facing extreme weather, will the Prime Minister end thermal coal exports?
Hear, hear.
Probably not.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, yes. Phasing out coal from the electricity sector is the single most important climate action any country can take. We're committed to ending thermal coal exports by 2030, along with an end to coal-powered electricity generation. The Minister of the Environment is actively working on achieving these targets, and we'll have an update in due course.
The Honourable Member for
Okay, well,
Arthabaska.
I do like
Mr.
Alan
Speaker,
Reyes. He's interesting
after question period,
sometimes.
all MPs will have the opportunity to vote on Bill C-273 to repeal
Sometimes.
Section 43 of the Criminal Code, which allows an adult to use corporal punishment on a child for supposedly educational purposes. Over 65 countries around the world have taken this step, and 27 are in the process of doing so. The
Doing
UN
okay.
Committee for the Protection of Children has
Still
asked for
got a
this.
bit of a cold, but I'm
The
fine. Thank you.
Call to action
Spiky.
number 6 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls for this, and so does the Canadian Medical Association. Can the Prime Minister confirm that his government will support this initiative in order to protect our children? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question. This matter is important to all of us, and I would like to reassure everyone that our government is committed to protecting children and their physical safety. All children everywhere in Canada. Thus, we will support C-273 and its goal to protect children from violence and abuse. We look forward to hearing experts speak about this matter in committee. This legislation is very important, and in a few moments, we will support it.
This brings us to the end of question period.
So there we go, guys. That brings us to the end of
on a
today's
point of-
question period, which was pretty wild. Some crazy stuff went down. I'm not sure. I had other people telling me in the chat that there was Palestinian protesters that's what caused the big interruption there during question period. And also, how about when Poiliev said like W-E or WTF in Parliament? Like that was pretty confusing for Greg Fergus, like a jackass, to try to handle. Super fun. And then he had where are the funds? Like he had that lined up. He set them up, man. Poiliev is a pretty clever politician. I'm not saying he's an angel or anything. They're politicians. They're all clowns. But Poiliev is a better politician, has better strategy, it would seem, than Trudeau, which you guys just watched what I watched. Trudeau's full of it, right? Like, do you trust a word out of that guy's mouth? I don't think there was another MP from the Liberals that was answering a question. Do you trust Trudeau? Because and I voted for Trudeau back a ways. Like, it's not like I've always hated the guy or anything like that. I don't have a lot of hate in me. I'm pretty cool that way. And now they're going to change the name of the carbon tax to the carbon rebate. How stupid do they think we are? I suppose that will ruin one of the pieces that all of the conservatives say all the time, which is axe the tax. But they'll come up with another thing that rhymes off with that, like, where are the facts, axe something, I don't know. But, like, calling it a carbon rebate rather than a carbon tax, I feel like they're treating me like they think I'm stupid. And I'm not stupid. Like, I've been paying attention, watching a lot of this stuff, and kind of sharing it with you, like the way that I see it. I'm not hardcore any direction other than I know that things in Canada have been bad lately. And we've got people on here that are living in garages that build houses. None of it makes sense. What's going on? It didn't used to be like this. I know I barely can afford my house anymore. And, well, it's just tough out there for all of Canadians. Anyhow, we're going to wrap up right here. I'm Ehren. This is Question Period Canada. Getting over my second cold in 2 weeks or something. It's coming along. It's no big deal. That happens. We had a big storm in Nova Scotia last night. Hopefully we'll get some mild weather to get rid of some of this snow. Some rain even would be nice. Anyhow, we're going to get going. Question Period Canada. Like and subscribe. We do the question periods every day. We release many other videos, lots of shorts for fun. And I do enjoy this chat. Like, in my personal life, I have fun on here. And so we're going to continue to do that. We'll be back tomorrow with more Question Period Canada, like broadcasting live the question period from Parliament. And it'll be fun. Thursdays are pretty good too. Wednesdays are the wildest day. But Thursdays are fun too. A lot of politicians show up. Pierre's normally there. Anyway, we're getting going. Have something healthy to eat. Try to stay warm. We'll catch you next video. Thank you all so much for watching. Ciao for now.